Yeah.
Well, the first one's actually good. The second one, like, it's exactly what Koricon said. And then the third one, is there one? No.
No.
We are live.
Oh. Dang you.
I like sneaking that up on you. Okay, so we
Well,
are
it's
live
probably
now.
just-
We're going to be talking spoilers about Avengers Infinity War. So if you do not want to know spoilers, then why are you watching a video that's labeled spoiler discussion? I don't know.
Maybe it's one of those things where it's like a car crash where you can't stop watching. And it's
And
like,
I feel like you probably saw the movie anyway, since it's breaking box office records. So
You know, it's my other channel, Koricon Nala, which you could see both of the subscriber back there. But on my other channel, I have I do Indian movies. And I've had a lot of my fans over there sending me stuff where Avengers Infinity War is now the biggest opening weekend of any movie in India, including all Indian movies. Biggest opening weekend. Now, there's a lot of times where in India they cheer for their favorite actors, like the opening day or the opening showing for a movie with a famous actor is insane. You're not going to watch the movie. Rajnikanth is the biggest. If you go to a Rajnikanth film on the opening day, you're not going to hear anything because people are yelling and cheering and dancing and throwing stuff at the screen for the entire film.
man, thank God I wasn't an 80s kid when, like, Transformers came out. I, like, super cheering for every Transformer come on just to watch them die. And I'm like, oh, shit.
Well, they don't really cheer for American stuff. They just watch the movie like normal. But for Avengers Infinity War, I had people sending me clips that people filmed from inside the theater of the moment when Thor comes into the battle at the end, lightning everywhere, and then you hear or you see Banner in the Hulkbuster, and he's like, "Oh, you guys are in trouble now," right? And then when Thor goes up into the air with all the lightning and everything and comes smashing down, the whole theater is cheering super loud through that entire sequence that you almost couldn't hear Banner talking. And that was so surprising to me because they don't really do that for American films, but they went crazy for that Thor sequence. At least
Maybe Thor's getting cooler?
I don't know, but Disney is having a hard time right now because they keep having to try and block. They're blocking those videos because they're showing a spoiler scene in the film.
Yeah.
But I'd have a fan send me one, and I'd be like, they're like, "Watch this," and I go to watch it, and it says blocked. I'm like, "It's blocked." They're like, "Try this one," and they send me another one. And I'm like, "No, that's blocked too." They'll send me like 4 or 5 that are all blocked, and then they'll send me one, and I look at it, and it's not blocked. And they're like, "Quick, watch this before it gets blocked." And I'm like, I don't know if I should be watching this, but it is cool that people all over the world are going crazy for this movie. It's not just us.
Yes.
And it is. I love the movie. I gave it an A-. I had some trouble with some of the action scenes, not all of them, but there were some that I thought were... Like, I always talk about the SCQ. You guys have heard me talk about this. Shaky cam close-ups and quick cuts. Those will kill any action sequence. Shaky cam close-up and quick cuts. And so, if you do any 2 of them, your action scene is horrible. If you do 3 of them, I don't know what's wrong with you. And then if you're doing Assassin's Creed, you did not only all 3 of them, but then added a 4th dimension of jumping back and forth through time to make it even more confusing because it wasn't confusing enough with the other 3.
Oh, gosh.
And so, but in this movie, you would have some shaky cam. and you would have some quick cuts, and you would have close-ups, but not all at the same time. Do you know what I mean? So you still knew what was going on in the action scene. I never felt confused. But there were moments where I was like, come on, pull the camera back a bit. Like, I want to see more of what's going on. Did you guys get that feeling?
I talked to a couple of people who are working on Batman also worked on Avengers Infinity War Part 1, and they mentioned that a lot of those reasons is because they come up with choreography before, like, they get that all figured out, and then they just kind of come with stuff up on the spot, and so that's why it looks the way it is. But I agree, it's like, I want to see these characters actually do these things. Like, in a comic book, when they're fighting, it's like a wide shot usually, and you can see your favorite superhero doing their cool move, or in the video game. But, like, there's parts in it where, like, you have, like, CG monsters, like, going, like, past the screen where, like, the actual fight is. It's like, just, like, not have them there. I understand it's crazy. But you know what movie accomplished craziness and you could still see the fighting? Lord of the Rings. All three of those movies, for how crazy they can be in the fights, you can still see everything very well. And, like, that is, like, something that irritated me through that. But
well, a lot of the characters that are in these fight scenes are in a full costume anyway. It's not that hard to pull the camera back and let the stuntman that did the choreography to do the fight. You know, one of the scenes in particular that I was thinking of was Black Panther. He had this really cool fight sequence. You know, it wasn't very long, but he was, because they're bouncing around to everybody that's fighting in that war near the end. But he does this really cool move where he kind of flips sideways and throws a kick to hit the guy. But the camera was as close as my camera is that you guys can see. And so his kick goes off camera and then comes back in. Like, you're not seeing the whole kick. But he did do it. And I'm like, that's when I was like, come on, just pull back a little bit so I could see the full kick.
Yeah.
And use a stuntman. Like, why not?
It's like that really cool moment in Star Wars Episode 1 when Qui-Gon and Darth Maul are fighting, and Qui-Gon goes for, like, a swing. It's probably at waist, and Darth Maul jumps and, like, does, like, the splits over it, but you can barely see it. It's like, what, like Lucas, except for he was so far back. It's like, why don't you get in so you can see the action? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, there's a happy there's a happy medium. I mean, you've got to be able to show the actors, you've got to be able to show the fight, but highlight what should be highlighted. Don't some of the close-ups were like here. Like, it was basically part of a neck and maybe an inch over the head of a close-up. That's too close. Like, your entire screen is just a floating head. Yeah. Like, come on, pull it to, like, here, if anything. You know, show half the chest if you need to.
I take it, did you ask, because I know we started instantly talking about the fight, but did you ask, like, general thoughts of the movie? Like, I think there was a question.
I had gotten right in there, but...
that's fine.
My question, I guess my thing was, that was my biggest negative, was that.
Okay.
And then the other things that I had were negative were more nitpicky.
I guess I can go into my biggest negative real quick, because I want to, like, clarify that I'm not trying to be biased at all about this, but, like, I don't like the idea of the story to begin with. Like, I don't like the Infinity War comic. I think, like, any type of comic like that is just absolutely stupid. Because usually you can't do it. It just is not a good story, because anytime it's like, oh, the universe is at stake, I don't care about the universe. I usually care about, like, characters with real issues. And, I mean, I will say, from what I know from the Infinity War comic, this movie is a lot better. because I'd rather have Thanos have a reason why he's killing half the universe instead of just impress a woman and trying to have sex with her. Like, it's pretty dumb. I also don't like Thanos. I think before the movie. This is all before the movie. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, good. Thanos, you have to clarify that.
Thanos, I think I don't like the character either. I think I hate characters who are just like super tough big baddies that somehow we miraculously beat. I just think those are always a joke. It's kind of like Dragon Ball Z. Like, they never knew how to, like, ever finish an opponent. Like, they just get stronger, and, like, they magically beat them. Like, those just irritate me.
Yeah, they hit unimaginable numbers like 9,000.
Actually, 9,000 is really low.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like the number doesn't matter anymore at that point.
Yeah. Oh, well, the numbers stop mattering when, like, Captain Ginyu later on is, like, 180,000, and that's, like, 20 episodes later.
Yeah, so you're like, whatever. But go ahead.
So, like, the Thanos, I'm not a huge fan of Thanos. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Thanos. I think the Infinity Gauntlet thing is a joke. It's a kid's thing that I like my stuff serious. Having said all of that, going in, my expectations were great. I think they executed the movie as best as they can for me, but I'm still not going to say, like, this is an amazing movie that I really like, because I was never going to go in being like, because it's just not my type of story. But I think they executed it well. So.
I'm kind of surprised, but not at the same time.
Why?
I don't know. It's like there have been a lot of times that you didn't like something, and I was like, "Why would you not like it?" And then your arguments make sense for why you wouldn't like it. I don't agree with you, but I respect your opinion. But it's like,
thank you.
It's like, huh? All right. I guess you don't like it, but at least you said at the end that you liked how they did the movie, because Thanos does have a character arc. He has a reason, and I agree with you. The movie is better than the comic book.
Yeah, like I said, for me, I'm just more into personal stories. Like, I think the Winter Soldier story from the comics is an amazing story. Death of a Dream when Captain America dies is an amazing story. A lot of the Batman personal stories. Like, I think Batman works better as Batman instead of the Justice League, because the stories get too bigger. That's what I'm into. And so that's why I wanted to say that I don't want to be like, oh, this sucked, that sucked, I didn't like it. Because, like, I already don't like the type of story, so I'm not going to be as amped for it as someone who just wants these big, giant, event movies like the comic books.
Well, and like, it's not like DC where they tried to rush to this. This was 10 years in the making with 18 movies that have those personal stories. So, since you got those movies ahead of time, is this one work better for you because it is like a culmination of all of it instead of replacing that? Like I think some people would want to try and get to this movie as fast as possible and then not do that kind of character work with the solo films. So,
yes and no. Like, okay, so so I think it's a lot of, like, I mean, like, just like those events in comic books. Like, I don't like those events in comic books where I have to pick up, like, 7 different other issues in order to get the whole story. Like, it's homework. It becomes, like, too ridiculous. And that's kind of what it is. This is like, oh, in order to know, like, all the backstory for all these other characters, you have to watch 18 other movies. Like, no, that's stupid. Like, the fact, like, no other movie's done that, and no other movie should try to do that. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, you should be able to have some sort of, like, character arcs in a movie. no matter what. And I think some of them do, and I think a lot of them don't, and that's a problem. I also think there's a lot of those movies that don't need to exist. Some of the movies, like the problem with a lot of the movies from the Marvel universe is you can't judge the one movie. You have to judge how it affects all the other movies. Like we talked about this before. I don't think Winter Soldier is as good as what people say because first Avengers, how they dealt with Bucky's death was so terrible that I don't care at all in Winter Soldier when he's like, oh, I'm back, and that's supposed to be a surprise. But it's like, well, they made no big deal about it in this one. Why should I care in this one? And it's like stuff like that, where like you have to judge it not just as this movie is own. You have to judge, well, how did they do it as good of a job? Bringing these 18 movies into this one. I think some stuff, yes. Like I think Tony Stark's whole ordeal is the best part, one of the better parts of the movie. How he's like, oh my gosh, like 6 years ago this happened, and now I have to deal with the problem that's been affecting me for 6 years. Like that was a good character arc, but a lot of the other characters, like Bruce Banner, the whole Hulk thing, I wasn't a huge fan of. Like Captain America doesn't have an arc. Thor just is like, I'm gonna go see Peter Dinklage, and then who's the other main one? Thor.
Star-Lord?
No, the
Strange.
the originals. Hulk, Cap, Thor, Iron Man.
I mean, Black Widow doesn't really have a lot that she does.
Yeah.
Are you thinking Vision and Scarlet Witch? They kind of have a subplot.
Yeah, they have a little. They have a little subplot, but like a lot of them just are. Hey, I'm here, and like they kind of are just there.
Well, it's because it's mostly most movies are the opposite. Your heroes get the characterization. The villain is like a placeholder.
Yeah.
For a lot of movies. This is flipped. It's the villain that gets all the characterization, and the heroes are the placeholder. So I can kind of see what you're saying, but at the same time, you had 18 movies of characterization. You don't need to revisit any of that stuff, and you don't need to do too much more. You're concentrating more on the villain, which has to be good, or the movie fails.
See why I agree with that. I also disagree because a lot of those movies in the past, they didn't do a good job of characterization. I mean, like all the Iron Man movies, he turns a robot bad, and he says at the end, "I'm not going to do that again." And he even does it in Age of Ultron. And he's like, that'll be the last time. And he's still building AI, artificial intelligence, even in this movie.
Yeah,
and
but by the time you get to this movie, though, you understand his character. Like as soon as you see him, you don't need characterization. You know who he is. Even though he does tend to make too many bad robots,
character flaw.
That's a character flaw. But, I mean, you still know his character, so that when he pops on screen, you don't have to explain who he is.
I mean, yeah.
And let's let Ian give his synopsis, and then I'll come back to this. But what did you think of the movie, Ian?
So I guess I'm going to kind of go off what Matt was saying a little bit. We haven't talked about the MCU as being like a television show that's really expensive in a movie theater. But
really, just a bit expensive.
But I mean, and not every movie in the MCU is like that, but especially like the event movies, your Avengers films, your Civil War, those types of movies are more like television in how they are usually less about the characters and more about plot. And so I think that for me, one of the hard things about making this movie is that so much of it is about plot instead of the characters. But it's also a big challenge, as we had talked about, that Thanos is really like the protagonist of the movie, but you also have the challenge of people aren't going into this movie to see Thanos because he's basically just been in end credit scenes up until this point. So
the cameo master.
Yeah, he's almost, him and Stanley are in a contest about who has the most cameos. You know? So I think the only way that the movie could have probably handled the story better would have been to like completely make it about Thanos, which I think I don't even know if that would be better, because it's like at that point everybody's like, well, I came to see Captain America, I came to see Iron Man, I came to see Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, I came to see the Guardians.
He also doesn't have that big of an arc. I don't think a strong enough arc for a 2.5-hour movie.
I mean, that's the other thing I thought about. It's like, if this movie was shorter, would it be a better movie? And it's like, well, then, there's not much breathing room in this movie at all. So it's like, I don't know if that would be better.
If you made it shorter, it would be just a smash of quick cuts. Like, you're not going to have any kind of story whatsoever. If anything, I would say it's either a perfect length or maybe a little too short, where you could add more stuff for Thanos. Because there's a lot of his characterization that they mention kind of quickly, which could have been expanded on, especially with when he was giving his reasoning of why half the universe needs to die, is because on his planet they were getting overpopulated. He had submitted the idea of random killings at like a lottery to try and bring the population down.
No one wants to win that one.
Yeah, the world's worst lottery.
But his, the whole idea that he had of, he thought it was fair that it was random. That he's not choosing who's dying, or no one is choosing who is worthy of living. The rich and the poor are all equal, and it's just random. And then moves into his large idea of getting the gauntlet and all the stones, because when he can snap, half of the universe disappears, but it's random. It's not his choice of who goes.
It's random. It's so random that it takes all the B heroes.
Well, it was so random that it left all the original. It left all the original Avengers. But I mean, from his character's point of view, it's random. He's not choosing who's dying. And when he was on his planet, that explanation seemed awfully quick, and then they moved on. And so, if anything, I think the movie could have been a little bit longer just to give some more backstory on him. But they really did push his character, and it was his movie in a way. But I think it should have been. Like, if they didn't do it that way, the movie would fail. Horribly. Because you wouldn't have a reason for the movie except to see everybody that you've already seen for 18 movies. So why would they make it if your villain is not going to be strong and have a strong backstory where you kind of even understand his motivations? You may not agree with it, but you understand them. You have to have all of that stuff for this movie to work. Otherwise, you might as well not make it.
I mean, I agree, because I'm trying to think in my head of another movie that has this large of a cast, and one that obviously comes to mind is Return of the King, because Aragorn goes on a quest just like Thor to get something to kill the main bad guys, but they don't show a whole lot of him. They show him talk to the undead for a little bit. But, I mean, even still, that movie's 4 hours long. Having said that, I think one of my other problems, and this continues on with the action, is there was a lot of action, and they had something. Because they had, the Children of Thanos, which are 4 dudes who are, in every other martial or anime movie,
one female. Proxy Midnight is female.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Four people, four warriors. Thank you. 4 warriors who I think like the fight scene set pieces should have been better for them when they fought, because when I first saw them, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like perfect. This is gonna be like Dragon Ball Z, where each of our heroes gets to fight one on one. It's gonna be this like really sweet action set piece. And a lot of like the action set pieces that they did have of them, I didn't think were that interesting. I think the only one that I enjoyed was the first one, where Iron Man and Spider-Man are trying to protect Doctor Strange from like the big dude and the other guy. But they're too busy half the time making jokes, and I wish it would just try to be somewhat. I know why they put jokes in, because the end, half the characters die off.
Well, I don't see a problem with them putting the jokes during the action sequences, because that's what the characters do. Like, they've done that in all the other movies. Spider-Man is known for mouthing off while he's doing his action stuff, even in the comic books.
I mean, it's just something I have with that, like the movies itself.
Were you really happy that the big guy got his arm cut off?
Oh, that was enjoyable.
Now, the guy that you were talking about in that first sequence, the magic guy, he's Ebony Maw. And I loved him. I thought he was great, like way better than I was expecting. But I do agree in that the two other characters, the two guys, the big guy and then...
one dude with
the guy that looks like an elf.
I knew his name before I started this Twitch stream, but anyway, they didn't get any characterization. They were just there. And then
I would have liked to have heard some of their names, because I felt like that was one thing that it was like in this movie they didn't have time for that to tell me.
Ebony Maw, they mentioned Ebony Maw. Proxim Midnight, I think they mentioned one time, and that's the female. But she didn't really get anything until the last battle, with her interactions with Scarlet Witch and
wasn't it Okoye
Black Widow?
Black Widow.
So, but Ebony Maw, he was the one, because he's the talker. Usually the one to get the characterization is the talker. But I thought he was great. Like, he was very well done, well acted. The CGI looked good on him, just like it did on Thanos. And I would love to see a movie where he was the main villain. I think he would be a great villain.
He's dead. He got aliened.
Yeah.
Which, I wasn't a huge fan of that. I'm not a huge fan.
I loved it.
The references. I know you would.
I loved it. See that really?
Did you at least like the Kevin Bacon is an Avenger map?
It was just really random.
You haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy, so.
Yeah, I've not seen either one of those.
Yeah, that was a joke from the second Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, okay.
Where he was basically talking about one of the greatest humans, and it was Kevin Bacon. When he was doing the whenever he talks about movies, the greatest actor and all this other stuff would be Kevin Bacon. And so when they were talking about the stuff, that's why Mantis, she doesn't know. She's very innocent about everything. And so when they said, oh, it's Earth's greatest heroes. So her thing that pops in her head was the Kevin Bacon statement from the second Guardians movie, and she's like, oh, like Kevin Bacon? It was very... And in the context of knowing the second movie, it made perfect sense, and it was very funny. If you hadn't seen the second movie, then it wouldn't have that impact. But I do love that. I hate when movies or sequels have to carry the hand of people that haven't seen the other movies through a film. I love the fact that they assume you saw the other movies, and if you don't get the reference, then screw you. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
you either get it or you don't. And so I much prefer that. I love the fact that they did not handhold and try and give you back flashes of other films and things like that. They just went for it.
Oh, and I'm glad they did that because, I mean, I'm always an advocate of you shouldn't make the audience feel dumb or, you know, as you said, hold their hand. And, yeah, I mean, but I just don't, I don't know. I just don't like all the references. But that's a problem with the MCU movies. I just want something a little bit more serious. And that's just not these movies.
No, I mean, you have serious moments, but you're not going to get an entire movie that's all serious. And actually, if you did, I don't think it would be good. Look at the DC movies. They tried to do that and it failed. It's like,
yeah, but I mean, even
if you have something especially this big with an 18 movie arc, like the serious movies would grain on people and get boring really fast. Like if you had just 2 movies that were that serious, people wouldn't, because they tried to do that with Thor: The Dark World. They tried to go serious with that one, and it was dark, but their villain was two-dimensional, like the same problem they had with a lot of the other Marvel movies.
I mean, but Winter Soldier worked.
Yeah, but it still had humor, and it still
I just think the humor works better in that movie and a couple of others. Like in Iron Man 2, for instance, I don't like that movie. That movie's funny as hell.
Iron Man 3 is really funny, and I didn't like that. I didn't like the villain in that one either. I think Iron Man 3 would have worked better after Doctor Strange came out, so that the villain could actually be a magic holder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I take you guys can hear that outside.
Kind of.
Hear what?
Okay, that's good.
Well, the thing is with Skype, it'll cut out a lot of ambient noise or background noise if you're not talking.
Well, thank God.
So I kind of hear it when you're talking, but not when you're not.
They're cutting grass, and it's not like farting or anything. If anyone refers to cutting grass as farting.
I was like, my dog's barking at the mailman, but I didn't think you could hear that.
Now, there's a lot of people that had, because you had these characters over 10 years with 18 movies. You fall in love with these characters. You care about the characters. You don't want anything to happen to them. There's a lot of deaths in this movie. I'm glad that they didn't do the thing, where no one important dies. Where you always have, like, the Star Trek, the red shirt thing, where the only people that die are the red shirts, and it becomes a running joke. None of your main characters are in danger. In Infinity War, they put everyone in danger, like, right in the beginning. They killed Loki very violently.
And Idris Elba.
And Idris Elba. And then
Hulk the 2
loses.
Other characters from Thor Ragnarok who they don't even show die.
Well, Hulk got...
go on.
Hulk got beat. Beat unconscious. That's why he doesn't come back for the rest of the movie, because he doesn't want to. But he got beat down. His first, major loss. And,
because he did beat Thor in Ragnarok, just in case.
And he did beat Iron Man in Age of Ultron.
Yeah. In his mind, he won those. But in this one, he got beat so bad he got knocked out. So there's no winning of this battle against Thanos. And then Thor is strapped up, and they all disappear, and the ship explodes. That's the opening of your movie. You're basically saying everyone is at risk now. Like, right off the bat, you set that tone. And I like that. I like that you didn't know who was going to get hurt or who was going to die or who was going to live. And it messed with some people that are emotionally connected with these characters. Now, me personally, I detach emotion from a lot of films just because I've got to review them, and I can't review a movie that I get emotional about.
I got to review them.
But I'm not a crier. I don't cry at movies. But a lot of my friends in the Reactors League, it broke them. Like, it really, like, affected them hard, you know. So I wanted to show I got a Stardust from Major G. You guys can tag me in your Stardust reactions so I can put them in videos when I see that. And so Major G had tagged me, and I wanted to share his reaction with you guys.
Yo, what up, guys? Oh my god, I'm still sitting in the movie theater because they don't want us to spoil anything. But oh my god, like, I just wasn't ready. I really wasn't ready. Everybody brought their A game. Like, everybody represented. It was awesome. Like, Thor was on a warpath. But oh my god, I honest, no spoilers. I just was not ready for this. I wasn't ready at all.
So I think Major G got broken by this movie. And that was that was actually a very common response to the film, especially directly after the movie. People felt like they were in this haze of like, what? Trying to process the fact that Gamora died, that Loki died, that in the last 10 minutes, half of everybody disappeared. You know, Black Panther, who we loved in the last movie, just became dust. You know,
or like in this movie, non-existent.
And like Spider-Man actually had an emotional death. You know, Tom Holland's scene with Iron Man was, you know, pulled at your heartstrings. You know, he's like, I don't want to go. You know, you could feel it. You're like, oh, snap, Tom Holland, you brought some acting.
Yeah.
Matt, I know you've seen this movie, but it reminded me of the kid dying in RoboCop 2. I don't know why.
Don't compare it to that. No. No.
I will say that Rocket was concerned. He's always concerned about dying, and yet he survived. So
yeah,
he's got a lot of rabbits
scene,
or something.
Yeah, his scene with Groot dying, that was emotional. But the thing is that last 10 minutes, so I've had a lot of people that wanted me to explain the last 10 minutes. Because a lot of my Indian fans don't understand the last 10 minutes. They don't get it. It doesn't make sense to them. And
like,
I think
why it's impactful, or just
why the movie ended there, like what is going on with that. Like, it, for some people they get it, other people it confused them. What I wanted to be able to explain, and I would like us to talk about, this is a two-parter. You know, it doesn't say part one in the title.
But it does that on purpose.
Yeah.
Allegedly, it's a two-part story.
It is a two-part story. This is basically Empire Strikes Back for the Avengers. You know, you end on it, and whenever you have a two-parter or a three-parter, you have one movie end where the villain wins. Because you have to have a reason to come back for the second part. Just
Round
like
2, Rocky 2.
Yeah, when you were saying Lord of the Rings, that would be the Two Towers.
Yep.
You know, at the end of the Two Towers, it's a pretty dark movie. And then you solve it in the next film. So the last 10 minutes, it ends darkly because we are getting another one next May, and it is part 2. But they changed the names. If you looked at the posters when they first announced the movies, it was called Avengers Infinity War Part 1, Part 2. But then they renamed them, and they haven't released the name for the next movie because they said the title is a spoiler for this movie. So they haven't...
Squirrel Girls Return.
Squirrel Girls Return, exactly. So when we get the title for the next movie, we'll understand better. But the last 10 minutes, he gets the gauntlet. He does what he explained on his planet, that his main, his idea of trying to save the universe, just like his idea was to save his planet, is to bring down the population because they're taking up too much resources. Our population is too heavy, too big. On Earth, it's we're getting to that point as well. The population is too high. And so his idea was, if you take off half the people at random, that would solve the problem. Then nature would take its course and we would blossom. So he's coming from a very damaged point of view, but it makes sense in a way. So when he snaps, what's happening is he snapped the gauntlet. That starts the whole process. He goes off, and then half the people disappear. And so that's what was happening, was half of the population goes away. In the universe, not just Earth. That was in the universe. So he killed trillions of people, basically. But he was also trying to do that planet by planet. That's why Gamora's, you saw in the scene with Gamora as a child, he had everybody split up and then he shoots everybody on the left side. Is he was going from planet to planet individually taking out half the population. The reason he wanted the gauntlet and all the stones is to kind of expedite that process so that he could snap and do the whole universe at one time and not have to go from planet to kill half the population. That's why you have that last 10 minutes. That being said, Doctor Strange had a moment where he was with the time stone and he was meditating. His head was all flipping around, and he said he just looked at over 14 million future possibilities, and there's only one where we win. And then Thanos was about to kill Stark, and Doctor Strange gave him the time stone instead, to save Stark's life, which means that Tony Stark is vital to the one scenario where we win. Don't know how.
Didn't he say something along the lines of, "I'm going for the end game," which is the new title for the final, or Avengers 4 Endgame?
I don't think they would call it that, because that wouldn't be a spoiler. Why would that be a spoiler for this movie? To call it Endgame?
Oh no, I'm just saying that the title for Avengers 4 is called Endgame. That's all I was saying.
Well, I don't think it's called Endgame. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I saw something where that's what was going to be called, but I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and either way, he's basically, saying that Stark has to survive because he is integral to the one future that we actually win this. We don't know how, but that's why Strange said right before he disappeared, I had no choice. I guess the only way. This was the only way. So Tony's got something to do with the ending, which also kind of, even though it wasn't that way in the comic books, for these movies it makes sense because he started the whole thing. We started the whole thing with Iron Man. It makes sense that you would end this part of it with Iron Man. It's very poetic in a way. But what did you guys think about, the last 10 minutes? I think all of those deaths for the last 10 minutes are reversible. But they should not reverse any of the deaths that happened before the snap. Only the ones that happened after the snap. And you don't have to bring back everybody. But I think the only people that can come back should be the ones that are post-snap. If you bring back Loki or Gamora or anyone that had died during this process, I think that negates, this movie, pretty much.
Let's go with Ian first.
So, Matt and I actually had a conversation before I think either of us had seen this movie, and I had kind of predicted that, you know, based on, I haven't read the comics, but I have a general idea of where the story goes. So I was basically like, I feel like in this movie, a bunch of people are going to die at the end, but it's going to be reversible. So I think, you know, there are a lot of people that were really affected by the ending, and I think that's cool. I kind of am more familiar with, you know, the MCU and how they tell their stories, and like the earlier, before the MCU got really big, there was a show called Earth's Mightiest Heroes,
Yep.
where they did a similar thing, not with the Infinity Stones, but with other galactic level villains. And to me, it doesn't feel like that the deaths are really gonna stick at all. I don't feel like Loki's probably dead because he's died so many times already. I mean, Groot's died a bunch of times too. So to me, that's kind of the one thing about the movie that, you know, I think it has impact for people right now, but I don't know how much impact it's going to have, because it seems to me that a lot of people still don't completely understand, you know, that the deaths don't have to stick in the Marvel universe.
That's true. I think there are a lot of people that may not get the fact that because comic books, you know, usually deaths don't matter too much. I mean, you know, they killed Superman and brought him back. I agree, and that's why the last 10 minutes didn't affect me as much, is because every time they disappeared, I was like, oh, that sucks. But at the same time, I know they're probably coming back. But I disagree. I don't think that any of the characters that died before the snap, I don't think they are going to come back. For one, Loki's death was it was a bit long and violent. You know, you hear the neck snap, you see the life drain out of him. Like, it was pretty intense, especially for a kid's movie. But his death, I think, is permanent. That's a permanent death. They were showcasing that. Gamora's death, I think it should be permanent, even though I don't want it to be, because I love Gamora as a character. I think any death that happened before the snap should not come back. Matt?
I mean, I was not impacted at all by any of the deaths. You know, I thought I would laugh, but I didn't. You know, that, like, a couple of the earlier deaths I did enjoy. Idris Elba's death kind of reminded me of that one guy from Osgiliath who's like laying on the ground, you know, breathing, and then Goth Maul like stabs a sword into him. So I was like, oh, cool. But no, Idris, I think the only person I was upset by wasn't even his character. It's like, they killed Idris! Why?
Why did they kill Idris Elba?
I think part of my problem with some of the deaths, especially Loki, is Loki's been a character who has not changed at all in so long. I've just been like, get rid of him or do something different with him. It was kind of a breath of fresh air that he died. It's like, oh, thank God. Like, he's out of these movies. Gamora I did not know, and so this movie was not a great way to introduce me to her and care about her to die. As for the others, I mean, it is really hard to care when a little 8-year-old, when you walk out of the movie theater, goes, but Mom, Spider-Man's going to be in the sequel because Spider-Man 2 comes out. And it's like, yep, and this is stupid. Like, I hate that so much, that they announce sequels to all these characters. It's like, if people would think for 1 second, like, it was like, oh man, this sucks. And then you just realize, oh, but they all are having sequels or a third movie or whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, I will disagree with you about in the comics when like someone dies, because usually it's a writer who's ending their version. You know, like when Ed Brubaker did Captain America, that death is amazing because it was like Ed Brubaker's send-off. Same thing with like the story about the death of Superman. Like it was about the death of Superman. It was a self-contained story. Like the reason why they bring him back is because it's like, okay, here's a new interpretation of the character, not
Right.
oh, we're just bringing him back because F you, writer. Like, and I think, like, they are very impactful in the comics because comics work as, you read self-contained stories. You don't read, Action Comics #1 of Superman to issue 1,000 now of Superman. You read certain writers' interpretations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how it should be. I think that's how, I hope the superhero movies in Phase 4, that's how they start doing. Like, I hope, if we get new Captain Americas and new Iron Mans, we're like, oh my gosh, this like director's interpretation of Captain America is brilliant, or their interpretation of Thor, and not just one guy who's controlling it all. Having said that, I think it just was not impactful because I know there's a sequel, and I know that they're all having sequels, and no one should be affected like this is the Red Wedding, because the Red Wedding is shocking because Game of Thrones, the books, are nowhere near as popular as like the comic books. And so like when that happened, everyone was blown away. But it'd been like if the next year, if they all just came back from the Red Wedding. And so I think this movie's actually going to be a lot weaker in a lot of people's minds. When the sequel comes out, they're like, oh. Like, rewatchability, I think it's not going to stand up because of all of that.
I do agree that they should not have announced the future movies. We know that we're getting a Spider-Man Homecoming. We know that we're getting Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. However, just because we know that there's a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 doesn't mean Gamora has to be in it.
Fair.
But Spider-Man, you kind of need Spider-Man. So if you're
and there's no way they're not making a Black Panther 2.
Right, they're going to make a Black Panther 2. I mean, if anything, if they wanted to announce these sequels,
I'm pretty sure
they should have survived the movie. If they were going to announce these sequels, they should have survived this movie. You don't kill off the characters that you already announced future movies for.
I think they should have done something. They should have just figured a way to kill one off. One really important one off. I compare this movie a lot because it is a part one. And like the biggest, one of the bigger ones that did it, I think did a very good job of it, is Deathly Hallows. They're kind of doing the same thing. Find 6 things. Find 7 horror cruxes. At the very end, the guy gets the gauntlet. At the very end, Voldemort gets the thing he's been searching for and is over some other dead guy, which Thanos was also over some other dead guy, being, Vision. And so, they're very similar in that way. But, like, when Dobby dies, I almost cried. Because I knew Dobby was not coming back. But they only had one impactful death. I think they needed to go, okay, who can we kill? Who we can either, A, have them die forever, or have someone replace them. Like a Captain America can easily be replaced, or like a Captain America can get easily replaced. I think one person would have worked. Like one of them dies, and they end it where he gets the gauntlet, or something like that. I think doing it in this movie and just killing half the people off just kind of diminishes the effect that just one of them dying. Like, it would have been insane if Robert Downey Jr. died at the end of this one, and that's how they ended it. People would have lost their minds over just that one death. Because a lot of these characters we've only seen like for one movie, and they just disappear. It's not like there's like any crazy death, or it's not like the only one that actually has any drama to it is when Spider-Man does, which I like that. I like his performance of when he's dying. I just wish they just had one person go. I think it would have been better.
Well, you had, one of the major characters. I mean, you had big characters, Loki, but he was more of like the mischievous kind of villain, anti-hero. He's not one of the main heroes. So his death doesn't have that kind of impact. But yeah, I mean, you could kill off Captain America because Bucky could take over as Captain America, like he does in the comics. But maybe they'll do that for the end of the next movie. But yeah, there's so many people that disappear in the last 10 minutes that I was like, it didn't impact me as much as what, like Major G or some. Actually, not Major G. He was more just like he was enamored with the film. I don't think it's the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think he was just excited to see all these characters do stuff.
There have been some other people that they looked like they were just broken. Like they didn't understand what was going on. A lot of people are just dead now. And then in their mind that feels permanent. I guess for me it's like, one, I understand that in comic books people are always never dead. Even though it's like with writers, it doesn't matter. You have another writer comes and brings the person back. So you have that self-contained story, yes, but that death isn't still permanent. And then with everybody going out the way that they went out so quickly, even while I was watching the movie, I'm like, all I'm thinking about is, okay, so are they all coming back in the next one, or are some of them coming back? Like, the one thing that I did like leading up to the movie is we had a year of everybody talking about who's gonna die, and then we're speculating about who would survive and why and all this stuff. Then the movie comes out, I really enjoy it, but then they kill off too many people, and now we're wondering who's gonna come back. So we now have a year of speculation of who's coming back and who's going to stay permanently dead. Are they going to bring everyone back and there's no consequences? Or are we going to bring back most and there's still consequences? Maybe there's more consequences after, like they bring back a bunch of people but then kill off someone after the fact. So I think the speculation is just going to continue, just in a different manner. And I find that exciting just because I like speculating all that stuff, and gives us all YouTube videos to make. But
fair enough, yeah.
I do agree that I think we should have had one of the major core original Avengers should have died. The fact that all of the original Avengers are the only ones that are left, basically, kind of takes away from some of that. That we should have had one permanent death. And I do think it should have been Captain America, and then Bucky would take over as Captain America.
Well, I actually have my theory on how he's going to go in the next one.
Okay.
Which that leads into my segment of the podcast. Like I told you when we started doing Marvel stuff, is how is Red Skull going to play into Avengers 4? Finally, it happened. There was one part I reacted that if everything else failed, I did not care, because I still like this movie and I was probably most likely going to buy it, because freaking Red Skull finally returned. 7 years in the making. Me putting all the theories in. Every time a new movie came out, I was like, all right, this is how Red Skull is going to go. I got the entire thing laid out on how he can come back. Yeah. No, I thought he was going to be, Robert Redford. I thought he was going to be the one behind Civil War. I thought he was going to be in Avengers 2. Nope, none of those. But now, finally, we have him. And I think what's going to happen, because they kill all the children of Thanos off, he's going to come back to team up with Thanos. The reason why is because, he was stuck on Vormir, and the reason why is because he had to protect the Soul Stone. Now that the Soul Stone's gone, he can now leave Vormir. He's also he's probably a lot more powerful, a lot wiser, and Thanos did not act like he was a joke. I mean, this dude was like a ring wraith Nazgul Death Eater now. Like, he's like floating and stuff. Like,
he did look cooler than he did in the first movie.
Oh my gosh, he looked amazing.
Well, you could also, in the theater, you could tell who had seen many of the movies and who hadn't. Because as soon as you saw the no-nose and red, even though it was kind of dark in shadow, but you saw dark red and no-nose, like a good quarter of the film theater goers were like, what? Even the first time I saw it, I was like, what? Red Skull?
I
do have to admit, as soon as I saw it, though, my initial thought was, hey, Matt got Red Skull.
I did think about that too, yeah.
I was like, oh, Red Skull! Hey, Matt was right. Matt's going to get Red Skull.
So, well, I don't know how right I am when I guess every time. I guess eventually I'll be right.
Right, you're like a psychic. You just continue to guess until you're correct once, and then you use that as proof that you're a psychic. Yeah, no.
But, so I actually stood up in the theater for this moment because, so when I saw the black cloak, I was like, that's Red Skull. I knew before he even showed his face, because he wears that same cloak when he holds the Cosmic Cube back in like the 60s comic books. It was around 1966 when that was happening, and there's a famous shot of him holding up the Cosmic Cube, and he has like the black robe and stuff. And I was like, it's him. There's no way it can't be. At first I was a little curious because I was like, that doesn't sound like Hugo Weaving, but there's some elements that it is, and I found out it wasn't. It's the guy from... he's in The Walking Dead. But I was happy that Red Skull was in. And now... What?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and now for my theory on how Red Skull is going to play into Avengers 4. All right. So, he is now off Vormir. And now him and Thanos are going to team up. Why? Because... for reasons. Now... This is how I think they're going to end
because Matt
Captain
just
America.
Wants more Red Skull.
Oh yeah, this is how I think they're going to end Captain America's arc. Because the Marvel movies are great about one thing, or they were great about a lot of things. But one of the things that they really do really well is when they show someone, you know they're coming back. Like I go to point is in 2012 they show Thanos. 6 years later he finally comes back. You know. And so they showed Red Skull. There is no way they're killing Captain America off without them facing one another again one last time. And I think they're going to do it like in one version where Captain America and Red Skull get pulled into some vortex where they fight for eternity because they were meant to fight each other. They are destined to always battle each other. Like Captain America is pure good. He always stands for what he believes is right. Red Skull is pure evil. There is nothing about him that you're supposed to feel sympathy for. And so I think they're both going to fight, and they're both going to like go away forever in terms of like never coming back. And what you could do to bring back the character Captain America, Steve Rogers, is if they get sucked back from like this vortex, he just looks a little bit different, like how the comic books always, drawing him a little bit different, just to be like, see, it's a new Steve Rogers. And you could do that. See, it's a new Chris Evans. And it would work because I'd be like, yeah, I don't care. Like, it's Captain America. He's back. Sweet. I think that's how they should do it. I think that seems like a really logical choice.
I do agree. If you're going to bring Red Skull back, not just as a way of surprising the fans and making us happy because we've been wanting to see Red Skull again, but if you're going to bring him back and actually go there, you might as well. You should have him go up against Captain America. Like, I agree. That would be
the reaction of Captain America seeing Red Skull is like, there's no way you're alive. How is this possible?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, and in fact, I'm even better than what I was. And I don't think Cap could have beat Red Skull in the first Avengers. I like to believe not, because Red Skull is supposed to be stronger than Cap. He's supposed to be Cap's supposed to be the one that has to think, how do I defeat this guy who owns an army, who's stronger? yeah, Anne is rich as hell, and I'm just a dude with a shield.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there has to be that moment. Otherwise, I don't know what they did outside of, Matt Kohler's been talking about this for 7 years. He's even emailed us one time about this and his theory. I might have, but like, there's just no way if they do this. Now, here's the other thing. So I read an article that apparently, so two things. One, the guys who wrote First Avengers also wrote Avengers 3. So they also might be doing Avengers 4.
You're talking about Captain America?
Yeah, Captain America First Avengers. Yeah, they wrote First Avengers.
Well, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, they wrote all 3 of the Captain America movies.
So this means one thing, that if they do Avengers 4, because they're with the Russo brothers, that means Red Skull most likely will come back. And because now that Hugo Weaving's out of his contract, they can have him, do more stuff. Here's the other theory. So I read something else that
Hugo Weaving is not going to come back.
No. I was saying that he's out of his contract now, and so now they can have someone else be Red Skull.
Yeah, because Hugo Weaving, I guess, was not happy with the first Captain America movie, and he wasn't happy with what they did with his character, or I don't remember what the whole thing was. I just know he wasn't happy, and so he had no interest in returning.
It wasn't just that movie. He was burnt down on big budget movies. Like, he was burnt out from Hobbit, how those were, which I don't blame him. He was burnt out from that, and he was burnt out from Transformers. I mean, he did 3 bad, big budget movies that probably didn't treat him the best. And
Yeah,
so he just
he was like, I'm done. Yeah, I get it. But I mean, that's why we, if they did bring Red Skull back, it would have to be this new, I'm glad that they changed his character a bit. Even his German accent seemed a little lighter. You could tell he's been in this place for centuries, or decades at least, like a very long time, 100 years. So you could have another actor play him and it would be just fine. Because he doesn't need to be exactly like he was in the first Captain America.
Yeah, I agree. And also, to be honest, like, I'm not, I love Hugo Weavo's performance. Hugo Weaving's performance.
Hugo Weavo?
Hugo Weavo.
He sounds like a Spanish food. Hugo Weavo.
I liked his performance, but I wasn't like, he is Red Skull. Same thing with Chris Evans. I'm not like, he is Captain America. Robert Downey Jr., on the other hand, is Iron Man. And I think, like, that's the thing that's good about where I'm not too upset if they do kill off or do what I think with Chris Evans or Chris Hemsworth. They are characters who are playing Thor and Captain America, but they aren't those characters. And so I'm not too upset about that. But the other theory, which I read a little bit about, which I also like, but I kind of like Red Skull and Cap's journey to end in the 4th one. I think it's a nice end to Captain America and him fighting pure evil, that being Red Skull. Mm-hmm. But there's another plan that he might be the main villain for Phase 4. And the reason why is because after Thanos dies, he has a contingency plan, which is like the Eternals, and Red Skull leads the Eternals to take on the new Avengers, which would be sweet because here's the thing. Marvel, when you take out Doctor Doom and take out Magneto, how many great villains do you really have? Outside, if you don't count any of the Spider-Man villains, because I don't expect Green Goblin to fight the Avengers. You don't really have a lot of like big villains that can fight the Avengers outside of like Red Skull, Galactus, Thanos, and some others. And Galactus and Thanos aren't that interesting outside of what we've seen in this movie. And so I think Red Skull is a pretty good choice unless they're just like, screw it, let's just do Doctor Doom.
Well, they I don't know. They can't do Doctor Doom right now just because of the Fantastic Four rights being tied up with Constantine Films. But if they even get that back, I don't know. I think they would end up doing a Fantastic Four movie first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want Magneto to fight the Avengers because
No.
I think Magneto and the X-Men should only stay in the X-Men world. Don't have them interact with the Avengers because that doesn't really exist even in the comics.
Yeah, they have some crossover events, but not like on a regular basis. You don't have Wolverine popping in and talking to Tony Stark on a regular basis. But
like I was telling Richie that you don't see people asking Cyclops, "Hey, why don't you join the Avengers?" It's like, well, because I'm on my own team.
Yeah.
Like, why would I join? Yeah, and so and the X-Men are just such a strong core that you don't need them to interact with anyone else. I mean, they got some amazing characters over there, but like. Yeah, so really your only other villain is Red Skull. So if they did not want to do Red Skull and finish him off in in Avengers 4, then the next obvious choice is to make him in Avengers, Phase 4, which then leads me to the thing of I would hate the fact of killing Captain America off and not getting that satisfaction of Red Skull, meeting him, unless Red Skull kills Captain America and does like an Old Man Logan where he wears the Captain America mask. That's an option. Have you read that comic, Old Man Logan?
A long time ago.
Yeah, there's like a really sweet image of like a Red Skull wearing Captain America's mask, and how he kills him is like Captain America's laying on the ground, and Red Skull is kind of like, I've been waiting for like this for a long time, blah, 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 like that type of stuff. And he takes a shield and beheads him. And I'm just like, we can get that.
I agree that they, since they did bring back Red Skull in that great moment, that they should continue to have him in the next one, and that be the reason why Captain America dies. I think that would be a great completion of his storyline. But I don't think Red Skull would be the main villain in the next movie. It's still going to be Thanos. But I think...
No, I don't mean in Avengers 4, I mean in Phase 4.
No, I don't think they're going to continue his character longer than just the next movie.
I agree.
I think he would just be in the next... If they even bring him back. If they do, it would be to go up against Captain America and be the cause of his death in the next film. But other than that, I don't think you're going to see Red Skull anymore. But I do want that. I want Red Skull to come back in the next movie and see him and Captain America go at it. Like, that would be epic.
Oh, I would love... I mean... it was even justice in First Avengers because how their fight ends is so bad, and I don't like their final fight. I like their introduction to that they're going to fight when Captain America punches Red Skull, then Red Skull punches the shield, and it makes that massive dent in the shield, and he reveals he's like, yeah, you're not the only one that's special.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh yeah.
Well, and their kind of fight in the building when it's on fire and Red Skull is leaving. I just like the imagery in that scene.
Oh yeah,
with the
it's
fire
literally
all around.
It's literally good and evil, and like as we've talked about before, those are my favorite types of movies. Is where you have an obvious good character and you have an obvious bad character, and they collide, and you see who wins. And I just want that between two of my favorite characters of all time, like finally one last time.
Well, I'll get to Ian here in a second. I mean, I know you've been patiently waiting over there, but I like two types of villains. If you have an all-good Captain America villain, Captain America villain. If you have an all-good Captain America character, you need to have an all-bad villain. And Red Skull is the perfect, opposite to Captain America. But I also love villains like Thanos, in where they're not, what they're doing is totally villainous, but they have a logic to why they're doing something that makes it understandable. Like
Magneto.
Like Magneto, where you're like, I know where they're coming from. I think they're going about it the wrong way, but I totally understand where they're coming from. And so I like both of those villains, but you need to have a hero that matches that type of villain and vice versa. So like Red Skull and Captain America, perfect with each other. Thanos and Tony Stark, I guess you could say, they both are very complicated characters in their backstories and everything else. And so it makes sense. I would, even though I love Chris Evans as Captain America. You were saying Tony Stark, or like Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark, which is very true. Like even in real life.
It might even be Tony Stark is Robert Downey Jr. I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, the line is so blurry. Like in real life, that guy is that. But I kind of see like Chris Evans as Captain America. I can't see anyone else playing that character. Now, in real life, I don't think that he is Captain America. He's not that, he's not that exact character. Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark in real life. But I can't really see anyone else playing Captain America than Chris Evans. But I would
as Steve Rogers.
As Steve Rogers, thank you. Because I think Bucky should take over as Captain America. I want to see that.
I agree.
And I think it would be a good redemption for Bucky's character. That he went from evil assassin to redeeming himself. Then in a way he needs to do enough good to offset what he had been forced to do when he was under the mind control.
Speaking of which, adding on, I actually don't think it'll just be Cap versus Red. I think it'll be Cap and Winter Soldier versus Red Skull.
Yeah.
Because I think everything that happened to Bucky, because you remember Bucky was getting experimented on in first Avengers, which I think that was leading to, him becoming Winter Soldier. And so I think, now trying to think about it, so in first Avengers when he dies and he falls in, I don't think he died because I already think he was programmed, to become the Winter Soldier earlier. And so I think, Bucky's like, oh my, this is like the person who made me who I am. This is why I am. I'm gonna let's take him out. And I think because Red Skull's gotten so much more powerful, it makes sense that these two have to fight him to take him out.
All right, Ian, it's your turn. What would you like to say about some of this?
I don't have an epic backdrop theory of what Red Skull's going to be doing in the next movie. I do have some things from the movie that I liked. I watched Thor Ragnarok recently in preparation, so I thought I really liked Thor's role in the movie. They did give him a couple good character moments. I liked having him with Rocket in the movie because I thought that was an interesting dynamic. I really liked the Guardian characters. Guardians of the Galaxy is probably my favorite MCU movie. I did really like, probably one of my favorite lines from any Marvel movie is when that Star-Lord meets the Avengers and he says, "I'm not from Earth, I'm from Missouri." Yeah. That was pretty great. So, things like that. I liked seeing Doctor Strange in the movie. I think that his solo movie isn't one of my favorites, but I like what Benedict Cumberbatch brings to that role, and when he's with other characters, I think he really works well when he's with other heroes.
Yeah, Doctor Strange is really important because it brings magic, to the whole universe. You had Scarlet Witch, but she was more of, you couldn't really explain what happened to her. She was part of one of the Infinity Stones, and she was kind of made a special person by that, but they didn't really explain too much. With Doctor Strange, they basically, they just said, magic is here, this is what it does, and this is its reasoning. And And then that opens the door for a lot of other stuff. So Doctor Strange is a very important movie for the universe, but I agree, I don't think it's like one of the best at it. I know a lot of people love that movie, but I don't think it's one of the best. But I do think it's very important for the whole series. And that's why I wished Iron Man 3 happened after Doctor Strange, or had Doctor Strange come earlier, because then... oh my God! I had his name right in my head a second ago. Yeah, thank you. The Mandarin.
Yeah.
They could have done the Mandarin from the comic books, where he had the magical rings and all of that other stuff. That would have, and then, getting that actor. Wow, I really need to eat some.
Ben
Kingsley. Yeah, he was perfect as
God,
the regular Mandarin, even though it did a perfect job as the actor playing him as well.
As Trevor.
Yeah, so that softened the blow for me a little bit, because I just love Ben Kingsley. But he was like the perfect as a good Mandarin. I would have loved to have seen him play the magical ring baddie bad guy Mandarin. I would have loved that. So I was hoping either Iron Man 3 came after all of this, or Doctor Strange came before Iron Man 3, so that we could have had a good Mandarin. But maybe now that all this happens, something could happen at the 4 and we get Mandarin. I would love that, but I don't think they'll go back. I don't think they'll do that.
Yeah, unlike Mandarin, Red Skull, actually, we had no idea what the hell happened.
Yeah. Well, with Red Skull, I always held out hope that he would be back in some way. Even though in my head I was like, I don't think he ever would, just because Hugo Weaving said that he didn't want to do anything. He didn't want anything to do with it. And so I was like, well, I don't know how they would bring him back if it's not Hugo Weaving. They would have to do something else. But the way that they pulled him off in Infinity War was perfect and made sense. And I was like, sweet, now he's back. Now let's do something with him. So I agree with you. I want him and Captain America to do something in the next movie. I loved the way that the characters were matched in this movie. I think the writers did a good job of matching characters with each other, because they complemented, like having Thor and Rocket, like Ian was saying before. Thor with the Guardians of the Galaxy made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Stark,
Iron Man with Strange.
Yeah, Iron Man with Strange. Very strong personalities. Having Black Panther and Captain America, that made sense, And that scene where they're all running into battle and you see Black Panther and Captain America running past everybody. I love that. That was a cool scene, and then they're both jumping over the river.
I really like the sequence where War Machine is literally like a B-50, like a B-52 bomber, just
it's a War Machine.
Dude, he's blowing up everything.
I was like, man, they need more of him.
Right? Yeah, and I thought everybody got a fair amount of time, or at least their hero moment. When you have this many characters in a movie, it's very easy to kind of push other characters to the side and them not getting any kind of screen time. But even Falcon had moments. Everybody had at least a moment or two. So I was happy about that.
So
but you can't make them all even. It's not going to work.
Right.
So I was just thinking.
Red Skull theory.
What did Red Skull do now?
Okay, so all right. So at the end of this movie, Thanos sits down, he's like, okay, it's over. I finally did it. Well, what's going to be the conflict of the next one? Well, what made him kill Gamora?
To get the
Red Skull. Red Skull was the one who hinted at it. I mean, it just
That was his job, though. He was to say,
yeah, that was his job to tell people.
Do this.
Or that was his job because he knew, all he needed was a little push to go crazy, just like Joker with Two-Face.
No.
Bada bing, bada boom. Red Skull convinces him to start conquering, to take everything as rule.
No,
Bing ba, Red Skull's back in the game.
No,
dude.
No, it's not. It's because he got trapped. At the end of at the end of Avengers, at the end of Captain America, he has been trapped by this gem. If he had that much power, he would just leave. There's no need for him to be there. He's trapped there. He's trapped there by the stone. He's a subject to it. So now that he's free, is how I think of it.
Maybe Jeff Goldblum will come by and pick him up.
It says the soul for a soul. In a way, Red Skull's soul was tied to this gem at this moment, and so he could not get out. He's kind of like a genie in a bottle. And now that Gamora's dead and Thanos took the stone, he is now free to leave. I see it. And so now he's been freed. That's why he can show up in the next movie and have his own arc. He wants to get revenge on Captain America for blaming him for sending him there.
Just stop, because I want this to happen, and
it's not going to happen, dude. And then you're going to hate the next movie because it didn't happen. Don't become one of those Star Wars people that get pissed off because they had a theory and their theory didn't come true.
First of all, I'm glad you didn't put me in that camp, me not liking The Last Jedi, because I liked it, or I did not like it for other reasons. I will say this. This is one of the few characters I would do this with. If you put Swamp Thing into the Justice League, I'd start theorizing on how Anton Arcane's going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. It's on them. It's on them. They put him in this movie. If he was not in this movie, I'm like, all right, I'm starting to doubt he's never coming back. They didn't have to show him.
Yeah, they did.
I think the bigger question is, what is Captain Marvel going to do?
Who cares?
To add to this.
Well, I was like, when I first heard about Captain Marvel, I was like, oh, that's cool, and it takes place in the 90s. I like that movie, but I thought of it as one of those kind of middle movies, like an Ant-Man or, one of the Thor movies maybe, or something like that. Not a placeholder, but a cool self-contained movie that maybe connects in some way. But then right at the end, where I did like the fact that Samuel L. Jackson, as he was disappearing, he goes, "Mother." It's almost got his line out. Samuel Jackson almost did it.
I will say I did like the end sequence in one way. I wasn't because I wish there was more. One thing that Nolan did really well with the Dark Knight trilogy is he really showcased citizens in Tear, and so you felt like you were part of the city. Those three movies, you are the city. The story is the main, or the city's the main story. You watch it evolve. They even color it how it changes, which is insane. And there was that moment at the end where the helicopter and all this terror. I was like even if we're not brutally killing people, by just saying small stuff like that would have helped so much. The terror of what is happening. Because they even did that in Young Justice, where all the adults disappear or all the kids disappear. And what was happening, all these car crashes and just chaos throughout the cities. I would have really liked that. I think that would have added an element in the movie. But
yeah. But, and it does show that other people are disappearing in that end credit. But it did make me excited for Captain Marvel, because now I'm like, okay, well, why is she so important that the last thing that Fury does before he disappears is to page her? what is she bringing? And now I'm really excited for the new movie because maybe they'll hint at that, and then she's probably going to show up in the fourth Avengers movie. Like, she's gonna be one of the catalysts that brings everything back. In one way or
Maybe she can
another.
time travel.
No, I don't think so. But there's got to be something with her power. Maybe she's able to get the time stone because of it. She's able to acquire something or other that allows a lot of this stuff to go back. But I do agree. I kind of wanted to go back. They shouldn't have announced the other movies for characters that are going to die in this movie, because that does take away from any impact that you have for those characters. Like, even though Tom Holland's performance when he's dying is like, it'll pull at your heartstrings. That's a good death. But I didn't feel the permanent impact of it because he comes back in another Spider-Man movie, and I know that.
Yeah, and what's
And
also
Sony's
upsetting,
not going to let him
she-
die.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
Well,
they
and-
just
and-
shouldn't have killed him in this movie, even though Tom Holland did a good job at it. I don't think they should have had him be one of the ones disappearing.
and that's the biggest problem is when kids know that that's not happening. When families, when everyday people who don't analyze movies, who just go to have fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when even they know, oh, who cares? They're coming back.
I know, we need to be traumatizing 8-year-olds.
Yeah, just like 86. We need to
Yeah.
see flames coming out of their eyes, like their soul has just left them, and we're watching our favorite Marvel character.
Face-melting Indiana Jones going on, like...
Just heart ripping, just people getting chomped in half. We are missing something from society.
I want to be able to create a market for increasing the amount of therapists in the world. And to do that, we need to damage some 8-year-olds.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Ian's over there going, oh, why do I talk to these guys? I don't get it.
you know, it'd be amazing. And they're marketing it towards kids, so it makes sense. Hey, you want a Captain America doll? Oh, don't worry, he's going to be shot to death in the next one. And then someone's going to put a bullet through his head just to get him out of his misery.
I mean, you said they did that with Transformers in the 80s, so I mean...
Oh,
there's
they
precedent.
did. You watched that
Well, they
movie.
had a difficult time with that film just because they killed off everyone in 10 minutes, and then they just didn't know what to do with the rest of the movie.
Yeah, they're like, well, now
Oh.
that we killed all of them, including Optimus in the first 30, what do we do for Act 2 and 3?
Yeah, it's like, I guess we'll sing a, Weird Al Yankovic song on a trash planet with a red hot rod. Like
With
that.
Eric Idle.
Yeah, with Eric Idle. Let's do that. Like, but yeah, I mean, there's also, because this happens with a lot of movies and not just this one, but where you would have things get released that are spoilers that aren't really technically connected to the films, but they're part of it, like merchandising. You'll have, and the biggest one is Lego. Lego keeps releasing things, their toys, before a movie comes out, and there's spoilers all over it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, stop announcing your stuff until after the movie comes out.
It's not that hard.
No,
Shocking.
just don't release the pictures of it. Announce
weird
that you
is-
have the toy, but don't release the pictures.
What's weird is it's like they've never done this before, this thing called marketing.
They've been doing it since Star Wars.
Yeah, and it's not like, back in 1980, there's a bunch of toys that said Luke, Darth Vader's kid, Skywalker. It's like,
Right.
Wait, what?
Luke
Yeah.
after he discovers Darth Vader's.
Well, yeah, they didn't
Swimsuit
all of us.
edition.
Yeah, they didn't release the toy Anakin Skywalker before Empire Strikes Back. They didn't do that, but they do it now all the time. Like, I can't look at toys. I can't look at toy release news just because it's a spoiler.
Yeah, I mean, well, granted, then sometimes they F with you because there was a Winter Soldier Red Skull toy.
Yeah.
I wish they just do that. Just make toys of people you don't like. Doctor Doom, Infinity War action figure. Wait, what?
What? Yeah. Let's just create character or like introduce characters that aren't gonna be there. It's like Wolverine versus Thanos. Say, what? What's going on there? I thought Wolverine was dead.
Nope. Came back just to fight.
Yeah, have Deadpool and Thor go, team up for something.
I will say this. I have a theory. I don't think it's going to happen, but this has nothing to do with Red Skull.
Oh.
This actually has to do with the
I'm not convinced.
I know, we've been talking about Red Skull for like 20 minutes. I'm surprised.
So Red Skull is going to go to the
Let's move on to another.
I know. Okay, so an actual theory, I wanted to go by you guys. So I think I would like them. So how do you get to where Thanos doesn't have the Infinity Gauntlet? And like, because they go back time to reverse everything. I think it'd be kind of fun to see the Avengers go back to 2012, where Thanos was originally, where you first see him. Because I'm trying to think, I was like, well, unless they have a location for a fight scene that you have not seen, none of the locations I see spell, oh, this is the final showdown, like a good place, especially in Avengers Infinity War. But the location I thought might actually work is at the end credits of Avengers, where you see him in that chair and he turns around. And I think it'd be really awesome if, they go back in time to 2012, they pop right in front of Thanos, and they're like, oh, so I see, like, you have, like, the Spell Stone, blah, blah, blah. And, like, there's a huge epic fight right there. Something happens where, like, some of them die, and, like, that causes the alternate timeline where the new Avengers appears.
I don't know if that'll happen, but no. It would be cool.
I think what I think is going to happen, the way that they get the Time Stone in the next movie, is that Thanos is actually going to die from the wounds that he got from Thor. And then they take the gauntlet off of his dead body. But then going back in time to fix everything, Thanos is not dead now. So I think the way that they get the gauntlet and the stones is by the fact that Thanos does actually die from those wounds. They just take it, and then when they go back, that's when you have to fight him at some point.
Ant-Man could slide his gauntlet off. That's my theory.
I think they'll just pull it off of his dead body. I don't think.
Well,
they need to
nice
have
try, both of you, but that's not what's gonna happen.
I want to know
read the script.
Whatever. Some of the actors haven't even read the scripts, or at least they don't know if they read the real one or not. There've been a lot of interviews where the actors realize that they read the fake scripts. Like, they basically only got their lines. They didn't know what was going to happen, even in the movie they just made. So, I think Benedict Cumberbatch had read the real script. And so that's why I think, a lot of the stuff with him and Tony Stark are the most important. Because I think that's going to be what is the solution in the next movie. It has to be. That's why Benedict Cumberbatch had read the actual real script, is they probably wanted him to know, kind of like when you tell Mark Hamill, look, no one else knows this, but Darth Vader's your father. So we need you to act appropriately for that. And so I think Cumberbatch knows what's going on because he had to be able to act certain scenes of knowing what is happening in the next movie. Mm-hmm. But I think he's the only character that knows what's happening in the next movie. And they basically said that he did because he saw 14 million versions of the future. So it makes sense that he would know what's coming. And that's because when I first saw it, the first time I saw it, I was like, why the hell is he giving up the Time Stone? when earlier they were mentioning that they would give up their lives for the time stone. And then
Yeah, if they did the whole, if Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the Time Stone were hanging from a cliff, you'd take the Time Stone.
Right. And so I was like, why did he give it up so easy? And then it took me a minute to realize, oh, he saw all of those futures. This is the only one that would work. That Tony Stark has to survive. Yeah, that Tony Stark has to survive. Because I was like, well, does the future that work mean that he has to give up the time stone for some reason? And then I was like, no, it's because Tony Stark has to be alive. Something with Tony is what makes that future succeed, but I don't know how. But I bet you Cumberbatch knows, because he needed to be able to act those scenes appropriately. So I think the only person that really understands the ending of the Avengers 4 is going to be Doctor Strange.
Because they go back to 2012.
No. when he was really purple, like pimp jacket purple.
Well, they'll change that too. Back to Future 2.
I don't know if they'll go back that far, because if they did, it would negate 18 movies. Like, you don't want to go back that far.
But I think they're going to do something that alternates the timeline, where you have, the Phase 4 and, or like the Secret Avengers or the New Avengers. And so, something like that.
Well, they could go back to, the first Avengers movie.
Or Doctor Doom steals it, goes back in time and makes Doctor Doom land.
Well, if Tony Stark is an important piece of all this, and his story arc basically begins with that, the battle in New York for this whole Avengers thing, maybe they go back to the battle at New York. But you don't want to negate the Battle of New York, because then that negates a lot of movies that happened. Not just Spider-Man Homecoming, but a lot of movies.
I think what will happen is so they go back in time, not to the Battle of New York, just to where Thanos is. They fight Thanos. Something happens where they die, but it alternates a timeline. And obviously, maybe when they go back to 2018, 2019, several things have changed. Maybe
so you're doing Back to the Future 2, is what you're doing? No. I think they're going to go back just far enough to be able to stop Thanos, but not negate the previous movies. Like, they'll probably go back to the beginning of Avengers. Or maybe the ending of Thor Ragnarok, where he's stopped right before he picks up, the ship.
The Asgard ship.
But then that would negate Loki's death. And I think they're going to go back to about the halfway point of Avengers Infinity War. I think the spot that they're going to go back to is going to be Gamora's death. I think they're going to go back to the Red Skull when they're on that cliff, and that's where that battle is going to happen, so that Captain America fights Red Skull and everyone...
Oh, and they fall in the pit.
Sure, but I mean, that's where they're going to meet, is they're going to go back to that moment. You can negate Gamora's death without negating the previous deaths that happened before that, because you still need some people to be permanently dead. And I think, even though I like Loki, I think he should be permanently dead. And then you can kill off other characters, but then that also negates all of the people that were snapped to death. So I think that would be the good moment that they come back to, is going to be...
Well, and also, they did set up the whole, Chris Pratt saying that he loves Gamora, and I don't think that they're going to just be like, well, she's dead. Like, I think if anyone's going to want to stop that, it would be him.
Right. I mean, it seems like a good moment to go back to.
Yeah, that probably makes the most sense, because that's where Red Skull is. Or,
And if you want your battle with Red Skull, that's where it would happen.
I mean,
It makes sense to go back where Red Skull is, so Matt can have his
I will
Red
say,
Skull.
Vormir did look cool. So, I mean, out of all the planets that they did go on, that was probably the coolest one. So it makes sense that would be the battle place. Or, final thing, Thanos dies in the fourth one. And who picks up the gauntlet? Red Skull. That's it.
See, the only thing I wonder is that, like, Adam Warlock is set up for Guardians 3, and he has the Soul Stone or the Soul Gem as being an important part of his character. So at some point, he's probably got to get it, unless they go different with his character.
Gotta go back in time.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with Adam. I mean, they just quickly mentioned him, so there's no real setup for him. They didn't even attach him to the Soul Stone. Like, there's all we know is he's created by the gold people.
Yeah.
The douchebag gold people.
Also, I'm trying to think. So I guess when they go back to Vormir, because 3 of the 4 people are still alive of the children of Thanos. I'm just trying to think of a point where maybe...
Because you could have the children of Thanos go, be part of the battle. I loved Ebony Maw. I kind of want...
He's the only one that was dead at the time.
I know. But I think that's the moment they're going to go back to. Even though I would much rather have Ebony Maw included in the whole thing, because I love his character.
They go back in time before they kill Ebony Maw.
No, I think the good moment is right there at the cliff with Red Skull, and I think that's a turning point in the movie. And you really want to go back to a turning point. And so I think it's going to be that moment.
Yeah,
but maybe they'll do a prequel movie, and you got Ebony Maw.
Oh! I thought you were talking about prequel. That would be the fourth of
Captain Marvel 2.
Oh no! Just a standalone movie that has.
I did like the joke. I don't know if it was supposed to be a joke, but I did laugh at the very end where it said Thanos will return. Like, I laughed. Like, it was like, is he now an Avenger? Like, maybe that's what they do. They beat Thanos, and then he's like, I will join the Avengers.
A lot of people in my theater kind of groaned when that happened. They're like, well, duh, he's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have much of anybody else. Someone's got to come back. And
I know I didn't bring this up, but I think it would have been kind of cool. I know you liked Ebony Maw of the Children of Thanos. But I think it would have been really interesting if, like, Thanos used the Infinity Gauntlet to, like, go back in time and pick up some of the other villains from the other movies to bring them back. And so you have 4 children of Thanos that he just kind of recruits himself, who are, like, who he thinks would be, like, worthy of him. So you have, you bring back Eric Killmonger, you bring back, like, the Mandarin and make him, like, a real person. You bring back, I can't.
They probably bring back Ronan the Accuser,
and then you bring back, like, Abomination. Like, you 4 people who, hey, Abomination. I mean, he's a big dumb guy. Who the hell cares? You need one of those.
I don't think they would. I do agree that him going back and bringing back some villains would be interesting. Because that would give a great excuse for making the Mandarin magical. Like, he goes back and picks up that guy and gives him the powers.
Trevor.
Yeah, gives Trevor those powers, basically.
That'd be awesome.
And then, and he becomes the real Mandarin. That would be great. Don't bring back Killmonger, because his story is self-contained in Black Panther, and it's perfect the way. I don't want him to come back.
Well, I'm just part of the problem with the MCU movies. I'm just trying to think of villains.
Yeah, no, it is that you have these 2-dimensional villains that they're just there to be the bad guy. But giving them a whole other element by bringing them back with Thanos, that would be interesting.
I just think it would be interesting because we have all these good guys come together. It would be kind of cool to see like certain villains interact. Like, you know, I know you said no to Eric Killmonger, but like an Eric Killmonger and a Red Skull interacting. You know, Eric Killmonger wants to do stuff for his people, or Red Skull is like a tyrant. Like, how the hell would they interact? Or like Vulture, who's just like, I'm just like a kind of like a small drug dealer. Why am I here? Like, I mean, like, I just think it would have been really interesting to have, like, or even, like, Loki when he was bad, like, bring him back. And, like, just have, like, Loki be bad for one last time, because I liked him more when he was just pure evil. And
he was never really pure evil.
Well, when he just felt like a threat instead of a joke.
Like in the first Avengers
movie. I mean, he is the god of mischief.
Yeah, he's the god of mischief.
And sucky. But I think something along the lines of, I think it just would have been fun. It would have been a fun little add-on for Thanos. And also, then you wouldn't have to have characterization of 4 people, which they didn't have. They were just like, oh, here's these like gray CG characters that kind of just all look the same and have no uniqueness to, kind of like the monsters later on. I would have liked, all right, here's, you know, is it Kate? Yeah, here's Kate Blanchett. Here's, you know, Michael B. Jordan, Hugo Weaving, and like one other person. And like, you know, gosh.
Yeah, bring back Hela. That would have
been. We're like, and who's the guy who played Jeff Bridges? And like Jeff Bridges, like, you know, have like a smart or Whiplash, someone who's like super smart. So, or Mandarin, yeah, Mandarin. So like you have like your smart person, you have your god, you have like, you know, a strategist, and then you have, you know, your all power guy, or your all magic person. Who's the villain in Doctor Strange?
Well, I mean,
okay, I can see.
No, the villain was
I only think about his Dormammu, but he's not
Mads Mikkelsen. But he's basically trying to bring that Dormammu from another dimension into this dimension so that he can stop time.
And Doctor Strange still has like a guy that he's supposed to fight. Caecilius is Mads Mikkelsen's character, but then at the end of the movie, Chiwetel Ejiofor's character Mordo is like set up to be another villain. So
yeah,
we don't know where he is.
Okay, well, I mean, you have your sorcerer with Mandarin, but yeah, you would have 4 people who you already know, bring them back, and then they're just kind of people, because it would be really sweet to see, you know, Hela fight Hulk, or Hela fight, you know, whoever, and then, you know, if you didn't want to bring back Eric Killmonger, that's fine. I think it'd been fun just because it's one of the better villains.
He is, but he's that good because of the story he's in. You bring him back and he's not good anymore.
Yeah, I just don't feel like he would fight. You know,
well, you make him evil. I mean, Thanos has some magical device on them, kind of like a.
But I don't want him to like become a zombie either. Like I think you just need to leave Killmonger alone. He's great in what he is, but you bring him back and he's just going to be silly at that point. He's not going to be threatening. But Hela would be cool. A real version of the Mandarin would be awesome. So seeing some of those characters come back and given a whole other dimension would be great.
And I know they haven't added them, but like, I mean, it would have been cool if like Venom as well, like just bring back, you know, even though the Venom movie hasn't even come out, but just like have Thanos.
It's not attached. It's Sony. Sony is doing that because they don't have Spider-Man right now. But it's not connected universe.
Fair enough.
But yeah. you should bring in Tom Hardy just to have a cameo and confuse the hell out of people.
Oh yeah,
just have him walk by.
If Matt Damon's in Thor Ragnarok, you can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, is he?
Yeah.
He's in the drama that Loki sets up at the beginning.
He plays Loki in the play.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and then also, who is the actor that played Odin? He was in Jurassic Park.
Wayne Knight?
No, the main guy in Jurassic Park. The main archaeologist.
I do not know. I've only seen the last half.
He was also in Event Horizon.
I mean, Anthony Hopkins plays Odin.
I know.
Are you
I'm talking about the play.
Oh, I don't know.
I can't remember his name, but he was the main guy in Jurassic Park. He played Odin in that play with Loki and whatnot. And then I can't remember the name of the guy that played Thor. But yeah, they were all like, famous actors. And so it was kind of a funny moment. Plus Matt Damon really hammed it up. Like he went above and beyond his death scene with Loki. It was pretty funny.
Oh, Sam Neill plays.
Sam Neill, thank you.
I did not recognize him, so.
I did, because I'm that
You're
good.
a better Jurassic Park
You're just that good.
All right, so we've been talking for a long time. Let's wrap this up. Let's give our scores. So everybody knows my score because I did a spoiler-free review that you can check out. I don't know why you would watch it now because we basically talked about everything. But if you want to know just my opinion alone, filtering out these knuckleheads, then you can watch my spoiler-free. And I loved the movie because Thanos was a very well-developed villain. The hero characters I thought were very well matched for the storylines that they were in. People had their own time. I loved the whole collab of everybody. I had problems with some of the fight sequences of how they were filmed, and the fact that the last 10 minutes feel negated by future movies. But I gave it an A-. So what did you guys think, Matt?
Dang it. No. I guess I have 3 different scores, so I let people know that I'm not just like here to trash this movie, because unlike The Last Jedi, I thought that was a piece of crap, but unlike that movie, there's reasons on why.
You just negated your whole everything you're about to say about Avengers. You just negated by saying Last Jedi was trash. Now people are just waiting for Ian to talk.
Oh no! See, there's more people on my side than you are. So
no, I'm just playing. Go ahead. You have 3 scores. Why do you have 3 scores?
So the first one being like my own personal score, I would probably give it a C-. I'll explain that later. Execution, an A-. I mean, I'll explain that a bit. Red Skull, A+.
Okay, so, I get it.
So like I already said before, I'm not huge into massive stories where a villain's like, oh, it's the end of the world, or now this movie's end of the universe. It doesn't feel like anything's personal. The deaths feel very weak, or I don't care because they're coming back, or their characters really haven't been doing anything for 4 or 5 years. Obviously Loki's a good example of that. He's just kind of been doing the same thing. I think if he died after, around Thor 2, it would have been a lot more impactful. Mm-hmm. The action, there's not many set pieces I find memorable. They had ideas that I thought could have been used really well, or characters that were fighting other characters that could have been really interesting, and that just didn't happen. Like, you have 4 Children of Thanos. Why wasn't there a fight with 4 of them versus 4 of the Avengers? And they're all switching off, hitting, fighting them. I mean, that just sounds amazing to have had, and they didn't have that. Maybe they're saving that for the next one.
No, I think they were separating it. So you had, the major fight with Ebony Maw, with Doctor Strange, because that is a match. And then you had the Vision and Scarlet Witch sequence where they were going up against them. But what I did like about that moment was when Proxima Midnight throws her spear.
Oh, and
Captain America catches it, and then he comes out of the light. I was like, that's an awesome hero moment. I loved that here because our theater was like, yeah, like they were cheering. The two main hero moments were that moment with Captain America, and then when Thor comes up at the end and he's all electrified everything with the huge Groot battle axe, and going crazy. Like those two moments were great.
Yeah, I agree. I really like the Captain America moment. Yeah, and I think the last thing being that I don't think this movie is going to have as big of a rewatch or as impact after the next one comes out. I feel like this movie, in a lot of ways, will start feeling like how people feel about Deathly Hallows Part 1, where it's just,
yeah, why was there two parts?
Yeah.
I kind of disagree. Now, I do agree with you that the impact of this movie is going to be taken away by the next movie.
I'm just saying I think that's how people are going to think. I'm not saying that's how it is. I'm just saying.
But I don't think it's going to be like Deathly Hallows 1. Because Deathly Hallows 1 and 2, both movies were really slow. You could have easily cut out 20 minutes per movie and made them one movie.
Yeah.
This movie is really dense. And I think the next movie is going to be really dense. But I think they would complement each other in that you just watch them back to back. Whenever you're going to do your movies, if you watch Infinity War, you have to watch the next one. Because it's going to be basically one 6-hour movie or whatever it is, a 5-hour movie. So I don't think it would hurt its rewatchability. It would hurt it as a solo film.
Yeah.
But it would be fine as a complement to the next movie. Like, you have to watch them together. You're not going to just watch Infinity War to watch Infinity War.
Yeah. And the last thing being that, some of the problems that exist in this movie, I mean, they're just problems I've had with the rest of the movies. And so I'm not going to explain, this doesn't make it. I don't like this because of, this movie had this characterization of that. And so that's more just a problem with the MCU and not with this movie. But yeah.
I think it's a problem with you and not the MCU.
Oh yeah.
I miss it. I'm just
so yeah, C- for what I think what I had. I didn't think it was great. I don't think it's this masterpiece of a movie.
I think Black Panther was better. But I don't think it was
terrible. I don't think it was unwatchable. Execution, I think the story that they're trying to tell, they somehow pulled that off. The fact that they were able to do that much, I mean, is pretty ridiculous. And then obviously, I don't have to mention the Red Skull thing, but yeah.
Red Skull.
I got 4 minutes of happiness.
Well,
Can't get wrong with that.
And I said this in my spoiler-free review. The fact that the Russo brothers were able to make a cohesive film is surprising enough. I think if there's 14 million ways that the Avengers would not win in the future, I think there's also 14 million ways that this movie would not work with another director. It's like the chances of it working is very low, and somehow the Russo brothers pulled that off, and to be able to pull it off is a miracle.
Yeah.
So the fact that the movie exists and is cohesive is amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
I would love to see some behind the scenes on this, just to see the process of how they figured some of this stuff out, because being told that you're going to be doing this movie would be daunting enough. Like, I'm glad that they had at least each other. You had two directors that could work on it. Because otherwise, I don't think it could work at all. So what did you think, Ian? What was your score?
Yeah, so
Did he just freeze?
It's the Russo brothers.
Hold on, Ian.
What?
All right, you. Looks like your Skype connection was going crazy for a second there. I was like, all right, Ian, what did you think? And then you froze immediately. I was like, wow, Skype totally just screwed Ian over.
That happens.
All right, you're good. So what did you think, Ian?
Yeah, so off the last thing that you said, I actually, one of the interviews that I heard with the Russo brothers, they said that, like, this movie, you know, someone had asked them if they had, like, leeway on what they could do, and he was like, and they said that, you know, they had leeway in certain scenes about dialogue, but it was like, as far as like the events and the plot of this movie, like everything was locked down before they started rolling, because I mean, you need that with this movie. I think for me, the movie is very plot heavy, and I think the Russo brothers did a good job of handling a story that I don't think many other people, you know, working in film could handle. It's crazy dense and crazy big, but for me, I am kind of like Matt, where I like some of the smaller movies with more character. I would have liked to have more character in this movie. I know that that's a lot to ask because this movie is so dense, but that's kind of one of the things that I would have liked more of. I think this movie has really great moments. I think it handles the characters pretty well. There were some things that you kind of go, okay, well, that, like, where Hulk can't appear, it's like, I get why that doesn't happen from a story perspective, but then it also kind of feels like, well, if Hulk were to show up, then, like, that would change a lot of things that happen. But those things didn't bother me too much. I think the Reality Stone was another moment that I don't think I mentioned that stood out a lot, when they go to nowhere and Thanos, like, reveals that he's been there the whole time, and all that stuff is, you know, just an illusion. I thought that was really cool. I really like the Guardians, so the scenes with them were pretty fun. I think Thor's stuff that he did was pretty cool. I liked his powers being amplified, although I wasn't sure why he didn't use them at the beginning, even though he got, like, knocked down. I understand that. I think overall, I give the movie like a 7. I just feel like that, kind of what Matt was talking about, I don't feel like this movie's going to have quite the impact after the next movie comes out, and I feel like events that happen in this movie probably aren't going to stick. And so I think if you're watching those two films together, it'll work for you, but I don't feel like by itself this movie is going to stand alone very well.
Yeah, I think this, but again, I think this movie is going to be, it'll have rewatchability in that it leads into the next movie. Like, you're not going to watch it by itself. You're going to watch it as what events happen before Avengers 4. But I don't think they're going to negate the whole movie. Like I said, I think they're going to pop up right there where Red Skull is when they're getting the Soul Stone. That's about the midway point of the film. So I don't think it'll negate the whole thing. It'll mostly negate the ending. And then, in a way, you're kind of making if you look at both films together, that you would end up with 1.5 movies. To where you could go up to Red Skull and then just cut the rest of that out for Infinity War and just paste Avengers 4 right at that spot and have 1.5 movies kind of thing. But yeah, I totally get your guys' point of view. I disagree with you on some things. I agree with you on others, but that's the way this goes. That's why our conversations are interesting. Huh?
Yeah, if we just all agreed, I mean,
that would just be boring.
Yeah.
But I do some videos where I end up agreeing with people, and we just nerd out the whole time, and that's fun too.
I mean, we did that with Aliens, we did that with Kubo, and we did that with a couple others. And then we also had a blast when I despised Dread and I despised Ready Player One.
Yeah, I mean, we all understand that you're not that smart. It's fine. He is a fighter, you know, and fighters.
I got something screwed up there. I'm like Griff Tannen.
Yeah, whenever he starts talking about a good movie that he hates, we're just like, he must have gotten hit too hard that day. You know, stunt gone wrong.
Oh yeah. Nope, it's just everyone else. Everyone else doesn't understand the brilliance that I bring to the table.
Yeah, that's also what happens when you get hit too hard. You start thinking that.
Hey,
delusions of grandeur.
Delusions. Thank you, Ian. Delusions of grandeur.
I'm just letting you know that this video call is Red Skull coming back for the fourth one.
No, and I totally agree with you on that. And I would love to see it. I wasn't thinking about it before, but yeah, I do now. I really want Red Skull and Captain America to go up against each other because it would be a great callback. Excuse me.
Different, but sure.
Yeah. So, what do you
join
guys
the Red
think?
Skull bandwagon?
Yeah, join the Red Skull bandwagon. So, what do you guys think? Who do you agree with the most? Do you agree with some of us? Do you have other things? Let us know what you like.
Or just not agree with me at all?
Do you like Red Skull more than Matt? Let us know.
Do you like Red? If you do, then you probably have something wrong with you. But if you do, that would be interesting. I would like to know. But let us know your thoughts. What did you like? What did you not like about Avengers Infinity War? Do you think it's going to be negated by the next movie? Or do you think they're only going to negate that last 10 minutes? Let me know your thoughts. Keep it civil down there. Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. And we will see you on the next video.
Thingy.
All right, thingy. You're going to do that for everyone, aren't you?